There have been a number of huge protests throughout Mexico after gas prices soared as much as 20%. Now, this happened after the president of Mexico decided to deregulate the gas within the country. Previously, it was nationally owned, and essentially what the government would do is they would control gas prices by setting the price that people would pay for it. However, he deregulated it, allowed other gas companies to come in and be part of the market, and of course, prices soared 20%. Now, the protests have gotten pretty out of control. Some of them are very peaceful, but some of them have gotten very violent. And it's not just because of the gas prices. It's a number of things, and the gas prices essentially served as the straw that broke the camel's back. Things started getting really bad after 43 students were kidnapped in Mexico in 2014, and it turned out that the cartels kidnapped these individuals, these students, along with government officials. They have a corrupt system there where government and officials and cartel leaders are working together. Also, there have been some issues with NAFTA, some of the unintended negative consequences on the economy in Mexico. And then inflation is through the roof, and obviously their wages are not keeping up with inflation. So to give you some more details on this protest, the border of Mexico and San Diego basically shut down several times over the last few weeks. And we have a video for you from Rosarito. I want to warn you that it's a very difficult video to watch. A lot of citizens are angry at police officials. And in this one case, you see an individual in a car running over a group of police. It's graphic, it's difficult to watch, but I want to give you that warning before we take a look. So let's go.
Yeah, that's terrible. So, look, a lot of the protesters are peaceful, and they say a lot of the violence comes from agitators that are brought in by the government to cause the violence. Now, having said that, that video seemed fairly clear, unless they could prove somehow that that guy was an agitator.
Well, it's interesting because that person is still on the loose, right? Mm-hmm. And I just feel like someone who runs over a group of cops like that would probably get caught relatively quickly.
I don't know.
We don't know. But look, the protesters are claiming it's an agitator. Obviously, the authorities are saying that's not the case. But regardless, that's a very small part of a much bigger problem in the country right now. And I think one of the biggest issues is internationally, people think that it's over one issue, but it's over so many issues that countries like the United States have actually played a role in, including things like NAFTA. You know, because of our cheap corn, NAFTA led to a lot of corn farmers in Mexico essentially not having a source of income anymore.
Which is interesting, because we always play this narrative that, you know, Mexico's taking our jobs. But in that case, it was government subsidies making U.S. corn cheaper than Mexican corn. So Americans are taking Mexicans' jobs. Yeah, so it goes both ways.
Yeah, I want to add a number of things there. First, to give you guys context of how things have gotten out of hand. There's been 400 arrests, 250 looted stores, and 6 deaths. So now, again, the looted stores, it's so hard to tell who's agitators, who's not. But I can't imagine they were all agitators. So people are mad, and they're doing some things that they shouldn't do. But there's great frustration in the country because it has become, in essence, a narco state. I mean, when the government works together with the drug lords to, for example, the kidnapping, the killing of those 43 students, and now some of those officials are in jail because there's such an enormous outcry from that across Mexico. But now when you get to NAFTA, so look at all the dominoes that went into effect here. So our subsidies, as Jayde pointed out, drove the Mexican corn farmers out of business. Now that was an enormous part of the Mexican infrastructure and industry, right? So they then, since they don't have a job, have only 2 choices. One, you go work at the plants that now relocated from America to Mexico, but that is a backbreaking work for very low wages. And if you complain about that, then they unleash the cops on you. And that is why there's so much anger at the cops as well. Right. Partly because of the narco state, but partly because they're protecting what they view to be imperialism, right? And so to give you a sense of wages in Mexico. Now, our minimum wage here in America is $7.25 per hour. And And that is way too low. People like Bernie Sanders and progressives are fighting to make it $15 an hour. In Mexico, it's $4 a day, not an hour, a day.
And to put that into context, it means that with these increased oil prices, a tank of gas in Mexico, it costs 12 days worth of work to just fill up your tank with gas, whereas in the US, it takes about 7 hours.
So, by the way, if you're an American worker, that's not good news either.
Right.
I mean, if you're driving a long distance for your work, you're almost spending a whole day of work, 7 hours of work to fill up your tank to get to work. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're not in great shape either. But Mexico's in worse shape. You got to work 12 days for a gas tank. Why do you think they're protesting gas prices and out of control inflation, which then leads to higher food prices as well? And then even if you don't have a car and you walk to work or whatever it is, you still have trouble putting food on the table. So then finally, the second choice that they have, other than going to work at the factories, is to go across the border. And now remember, NAFTA passed in the mid-1990s, and then we have a huge immigration problem that explodes in the late 1990s.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so then the last piece of the puzzle is we've got this Mexican economy that is in some degree of trouble. Yes, we're adding some jobs in the factories, but it's very low wage jobs, and you've displaced a lot of the workers and a lot of the farmers, and a lot of them now come into America, and then Americans are pissed because they're depressing their wages. And then a guy like Trump comes along and goes, you need to build a wall. This immigration problem's out of control, and you lost your jobs. So the laws passed under Bill Clinton, ironically, did in Hillary Clinton when she was running against Donald Trump. And so that is what progressives call neoliberal agenda. When you go and you globalize. And for me, I don't think it's that simple. I think that there is certainly positive effects of globalization. And we've created we as in the whole world, to some degree created a decent sized middle class in China and India, some in Mexico, but we have also created enormous income inequality in Mexico. Here in the US, Russia's the worst. Yeah. And so if you're gonna do globalization, you need to be very careful about how you present opportunity in all those countries.
Yes.
Because if you don't bring opportunity along with the inequality, it leads to this.
So to give you a concrete statistic showing what that wealth inequality is really like, Oxfam does a study every year to kind of show you what wealth inequality is like. And they don't just look at the United States, they look at the whole world. And what they found was that 8 people in this world have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the population. Okay, that is insane. That's not to demonize the wealthy, but that's just to say that we have a certain system set up internationally through trade agreements and things like that, that obviously benefit a select few while putting everyone else at a significant disadvantage.
I just want to pick up on that inequality because it's really easy to just say, well, NAFTA, and if NAFTA didn't exist, then we wouldn't have this problem. It's really easy to pin the whole issue on NAFTA, but there's a number of parts where inequality has come into this, so it's a more nuanced picture. For example, the Mexican government pushed through this privatization of the oil industry, which is what's led to the increase in oil prices. Now, who do you think was behind that push to privatize the oil industry? US oil interests. So it's corporate interests and the powerful controlling the government, again, being behind the problems. It's not just NAFTA. Another one is Trump's rhetoric. So here's a guy who is saying that he's going to build a wall and penalize Mexican industry. And then what happens? The peso collapses, which again increases the amount of burden that's put on Mexican citizens. So again, it's inequality that's being caused by the very wealthy that is the broad problem here, not one particular deal or one particular privatization deal.
When it comes to the establishment, whether it is politicians in Mexico and the U.S. and the media in the U.S. and Mexico, all owned by giant multinational corporations, they want you to believe that, for example, when a multinational oil corporation from America, based in America, tells the Mexican people, don't worry, we have your best interests in mind, and your gas prices will be lower if we own it. No one in the world believes them except those establishment people.
Yeah.
And all the politicians and all the media tell you, oh no, ExxonMobil has your best interest in mind, Mexican people. And that's why you have all these protests, because no one in their right mind believes that. Who does ExxonMobil work for? ExxonMobil! We all know that. They have their best interests in mind, not yours. So they insult our intelligence by continuing to push these outrageous lies. In that same report, I forget what the exact number of corporations, but a few small elite corporations now have more money than 184 of the countries combined, right? I forget if it was the top 100 corporations or so. And the reason I give you that context is because now we're not run by governments anymore. We're run by corporations. They make the decisions. And they think they're all so clever in the establishment. Again, politics and media is what I'm referring to here, and large business interests. They think, oh, we've been lying to people for 30, 40 years and telling them that our agenda is what's best for them. The idiots will keep on believing it. Well, we don't believe it anymore. And by the way, the right doesn't believe it and the left doesn't believe it. That's why you'll have protests in Mexico, but you'll also have Brexit and you'll also have Trump. Because we don't believe you anymore. It's an obvious lie. You know who makes independent media possible? You guys. Because of you, we can actually do this show free of any outside influence. That's what makes us so strong. Become a member today. tytnetwork.com/join. You are the media.